Hello, Mr. Hill. How are you?
I'm very well, Tim. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. I feel like this has been a long time in the making since I appeared on your podcast many moons ago now.
Yeah, that's going to be 18 months ago. I think you were on the eComOne's podcast.
I mean, it was big. Like, you've done, how many episodes are you on now? 140 odd, is it?
Yeah, I think we're 144 live. I think we've got about 147 in the bank. So we're approaching the 150 mark, yes.
Some podcast series, that, to be fair. You'll be soon there, top of the iTunes store or whatever the kids are using nowadays, and you'll be right up there. For those people who haven't met you before, Richard, would you mind giving a quick introduction of yourself and eComOne's to the audience?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Well, first, thanks for having us on the show. But I know, as you said, we've tried to organise this, I think, for several months. So here we are. So thanks a lot for having me on the show. So I'm Richard Hill. I'm the CEO and founder of eComOne's. We're an e-commerce growth agency based in Lincolnshire. And as the name suggests, we work with e-commerce stores on all platforms, really, but we've got a strong affinity to sort of Shopify, BigCommerce as our sort of main clients and main sort of focus. But we work with e-com stores on sort of four core areas, really: SEO, PPC, digital PR, and CVO. And I set up sort of our agency coming on to 14 years ago now. And then we sort of updated our branding, look and feel, etc., with eComOne's about 5 years ago. So eComOne's as a brand, it's coming up to its 5th birthday in November, but as an actual entity and as a full agency, we're coming up to 14 years. So we've seen a few things. It was a little bit easier back then, as you can imagine.
I was going to say, there's always the stories, isn't there, that people who've been working in longer are always talking about link farms and stuff like that from days gone by, and buying links from Russia and whatnot and taking it all across the world. But no, completely agree. I think, like, as I say, you guys have been on our radar for quite a while. You're a company that, as I say, always seem quite exciting in terms of growth, and always, like, you're always at events as well, which I think is where a lot of business gets done. Let's be honest. You get pally with people. You see things tick along nicely. Jobs are good. But yeah, that was a really good insight and a really good kickstart. And I think, as a company, you mentioned eComOne's 4 years old, but obviously, like, the overall brand business concept is like 14-year-old overall.
Yeah.
So I suppose we touched on it lightly and talked about minor sort of adaptations, changes in the sort of digital marketing space. If you don't mind me asking then, Richard, from starting to now, what are the biggest changes that you've seen, do you think?
I mean, I think, 14 years, probably 20 years I've been doing SEO. So, the complexity of things now is obviously, there's a lot more to any strand of marketing that you do, but I think the fundamentals remain the same. Back when I started, it would take months and weeks and weeks and weeks to launch a website, and maybe days to rank it on page 1 of Google. Whereas now, you can launch a website relatively quickly, obviously depending on the size of the listener and their business, but with the technology that's out there, the support, the platforms, there's minimal custom coding required with various tech partners and things like that. Now you can launch a site, a very strong proposition very, very quickly, but to obviously get it on page 1 of Google is not something yet you can do overnight. So, there's now a lot more to it. But however, a lot of the things that we've done all the way along, still remain the same, which is, having an amazing offer, having an amazing, page structure, the way that page is, if you like, tagged from top to bottom, from title tags, very, 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 very basic SEO element, all the way down the page to the various things that page needs. It's very similar back then. It still needs those things now, but there's a lot more signals. There's a lot more, I guess, noise out there to ensure that you rank. So you've just got to be a lot more thorough. So yeah, it was a lot easier 13, 14 years ago, but now there's a lot more opportunity. Obviously, the size of every market is growing, as has grown, insanely. Depending on your sort of channel of choice, really. But most clients we work with obviously work on, the majority of channels and have a strong revenue stream, in all of them. That's sort of probably my key thing I would get across is, I think a lot of people may be relying on one channel, whether that's Amazon, eBay, SEO, and not doing, a lot of the other things that are available to you in the market. And if that one thing that you're doing is very, very strong is taken away from you, it can be quite challenging for you. So having, your traffic and orders coming from various sources, I think is something I would, be good to maybe talk about.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there is one point I'd like to disagree with you on there, because a gentleman in my inbox this morning said he could get me to the top of Google in half an hour today, all for the small fee of £10,000. So there you go.
I think I had the same email.
As well, like, honest to God, this guy's a wizard. Like, I don't know why he's not employed somewhere, because he's all over the place. But I think looking at it as well, the biggest sort of comparison that people draw, and when we speak to retailers at our end, it's always that they see PPC as this overnight success where you can go and shot a load of money at it and go, right, there's 10 grand to get me some orders, versus SEO is seen as a sort of gradual trend. Now, you mentioned that you do CVO as well as digital PR as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, SEO and PPC are well-travelled paths.
Yeah.
How would you describe CVO and digital PR to someone who's not in the know, perhaps?
Sure. So I think, they are sort of, if you like, the areas that I think a lot of firms are not invested in usually. And if we think of SEO and PPC around acquisition, trying to generate new inquiries, a new business. Now, obviously, you need to put an amount in, to generate new eyeballs on your business, and obviously get a conversion rate or a conversion value that commercially works for your business. If we take CVO, that is very much, if we think about trying to get more from those visitors, and there's various different technology you can use to do that, or various things you can do to your website. So from a CVO point of view, one of the strong areas that we look at is email marketing. So working with, there's a lot of different technology out there, but to take a buyer from that single purchase to then take them to buy again and again, to recommend, to then instill that loyalty with that customer, and it's about lifetime value. So ultimately taking somebody that has bought once, if your average order value on your website is, for easy maths, easy maths is good, £100. And then they obviously buy 5-6 times, you've got £600 lifetime value. They recommended you to 2 or 3 friends, in certain industries, this works extremely well in, so for example, where there's quite a lot of repeat orders potentially, so if you think of an industry like clothing, baby clothes comes to mind. We do a lot in the sort of baby niche. It's not very long before, a newborn child, next thing you know, you're buying something every other week or every other month. And then them's parents are friends with a lot of other new parents, new mums, etc. So the ability to influence other people buying from the same place you bought, that one initial purchase could lead to 20 purchases potentially, and lifetime value is absolutely key. There's a lot more to it than that. You can layer in other technology stacks. Implement SMS, for example. To again encourage that second order. The amount of abandoned carts that people will be getting from no matter what sort of technology stack they're using, whatever platform they're using. The ability to just nudge people over the line with whether it be email, SMS, there's obviously the technologies like yourself out there that can sort of nudge people over. So CVO, there's other strands to that, by working on the site and encouraging, higher conversion rate. But it's usually the area that most people aren't. Look, I think what we see is when they hit a certain level, to go to that next level, investing in CVO seems to be, something that can really, generally speaking, add an extra 35% to a business if they invest, in the different CVO stack. Yeah. And then on the...
I think as well, like you mentioned that... Sorry, mate, go on, carry on.
No, I mean, I was going to say on the digital PR side, that's, it's there's different things you can do there in terms of newsjacking, so, in most industries, there's something happening in the news that you can get in front of and get your brand in front of. But most is quite sort of almost like a guarded way of doing things, in different industries. But having relationships with the right people in your industry, and you mentioned going to events, for example, that's a great starting point to go, for our listeners, your listeners, to go. Every industry has events, whether it's an e-commerce event, obviously there's a whole raft of things that we go to, and we run ourselves in various events. But obviously, if you're there selling baby clothes as the example, or barbecues, or outdoor this, or kitchens, whatever it may be, there's different industry events that you can go to and get to know the people in those industries, that when they want commentary, when they want opinion on various things that are happening. You could be the go-to, your company, you as the face of the company, or somebody within your marketing team can comment. So that's an element of digital PR. But then you can take, another example would be to take data within your industry and turn that into a piece of content, and then push that out to journalists that are in your industry to comment on it. And then what that's doing, it's driving a lot of high profile websites within your industry to talk about your brand. So you're building what you refer to sort of the old school backlinks. Well, this is like the new school backlinks, really. It's digital PR, building cracking content as opposed to, some of the stuff you might be referring to back in the day. You're creating really good authority pieces. It's maybe got some sort of interaction, on the graphical side. That people are referring to, and you can get 10, 20, 50, hundreds of links back to that piece. You're building your authority, domain authority, but you're also getting real eyeballs back on the, onto the website. So yeah, a couple of newer areas. Yeah.
I do think as well, digital PR is one of those ones where I've sort of seen it crop up perhaps more over the past 2 years or something like that as a service that people are offering. And it was one where, like you've described it there, Richard, perfectly, it was something where I'd sort of seen it and gone, wait there, is that not that just that dressed up in that area, but like presented nicer? And I often thought, hang about, is this just like, as I say, a redress service? But the way that people are doing it now, they're so you can get so creative with it, like you mentioned there, and like use topical things, for example, like I think we'll talk about this in a bit, but ChatGPT, for example, and doing that side of things, you can fire that into your sort of stuff as well. Like I think, for example, even ChatGPT made it into a South Park episode, and I was sat there going, "It's absolutely insane! Like, what's going on here?" But yeah, like you said, that's a really good overview of what you guys do and how it all works and how it impacts a retailer's like life cycle in terms of digital marketing. I think one of the areas that we did want to talk about, and I mentioned it a couple of seconds ago, was the ChatGPT element. Now, I don't want to put anybody on blast here, and I don't want any of your team feeling uneasy or anything like that. But could you see ChatGPT replacing people's jobs eventually?
Replacing is a stretch. Changing, absolutely. So I think if you've got the mindset that it's going to replace your job, I think you need to rethink that, because I think it's a big, we think, and I genuinely think it's a huge opportunity, a huge step change, speed that you've got to embrace. If you're in, I think a lot of SEOs look at it on the content side. There is other uses, around coding and around images. But in terms of content, which is, is probably, right up there, 50, 60, 70% of an SEO business. It depends on the site, but it is, it's a huge, our sort of output in our SEO department is primarily content. So it's not going to replace our people, but it will change what some of them do, but the outcome will be, and already is, it's a better level of output. It's more consistent, and you're able to basically generate more content. I think if you think about, I think a lot of people worry about quality, things like that, but the sort of different models, when it first came out, I got ChatGPT 3, when it took sort of various exams that were out there, I think it was passing them at like a D minus. and then ChatGPT 3.5 came out, and I think I know that was passing exams at like a C, and scrape it into a B. Whereas now the new ChatGPT 4, that is that is passing exams at like an A minus. So, I don't know about you, Tim, but if I could get an A minus.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. That beats any of my school results. So, we'll take that one straight away. Thank you very much.
It beats my one GCSE,
Tim's
to be fair.
Going back to university.
So, I think, embracing it, I think, within your organization, the guys that are listening, my advice would be to encourage the use of it. Not to, to go, oh, no, we're not using that. Some of the things we've been testing now, I think, there is no doubt that it's helping us, in so many ways, when I think about, comparing it to other AI, so like Google Ads, maybe three, trying to get my timeline right, but 3+ years ago, they introduced a lot more AI, and now Performance Max, all the different sort of shopping iterations that have come out over this sort of probably 2 or 3 years. I think a lot of businesses, a lot of agencies were hesitant to use the AI side, but Performance Max, out of the box, and if everyone is coming out, everyone is doing the same thing, okay, you're not really, everyone's on the same level, but it's better than what it was maybe. So, but a bit like with AI, what you've got to do, you've got to use the AI, but it's the input, the individual, you as the agency or, your own marketing team, what you do with that AI and what you do with that Performance Max, they're both great tools, but if everyone's using them, how do you get that advantage? So it's how you use it, how you structure in ChatGPT's instance, the series of prompts that you put into it rather than write me a blog post about, ginger hair dye, what it's going to be, it's going to be, a poor, blog post. But if you feed it information to train it and tell it to look at X, Y, and Z first, to write it in a tone of X, Y, and Z, to then use this, and the other, to then, connect with an API to, a graphical AI that can then create images that are brand new, that are tagged properly, to then create FAQs to go with that have been mined from the first page of Google, that are then written in a slightly different tone. Rather than one command, you're giving it a series of prompts that's a lot more educated.
And I think that's where the sort of education process came in, because like you mentioned, I remember having a go of it, and it was like, write me a blog post about conversion rate optimization. And don't get me wrong, it came back in such a timely manner, and it was decent, to be fair. Like, you're looking at it and you're going like, but again, that probably speaks to my GCSE level and going, I don't think you can read particularly well. But overall, the development of it and using it, as you say, Richard, with an in-house team and feeding back into the system is something that seems attractive purely from an efficiency standpoint as well. To be like, instead of you over there writing a piece of content for 3 days, you can get a baseline to work from, tweak it, edit it, move forward, and have that delivered within, I don't know, a day or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Using it to do some of that research phase specifically, definitely, to give you then a very strong outline. But the key is obviously not just to copy, paste, use. You've got to then, layer in that human element on the copy side. I think you're going to see a lot more writers become editors. Or they're going to have more of their role will become, going to have a more higher element of editing, or you'll need more editors within your business. Because I think with ecom, which is obviously what we're focused on, if you've got 10,000 SKUs, and there's the old sort of SEO, what's the top thing in SEO? One of the big issues of SEO and ecom stores is product descriptions. Most of those products, if they're from manufacturers, have come from a manufacturer database, which is the same, and everyone's got the same product descriptions. So, we're going to rewrite 10,000 product descriptions. To do that manually, which is, we have people that do that in our content teams. To do that manually is obviously a huge job. It takes a lot of time to rewrite, but using an element of AI, ChatGPT to rewrite, we can take, what might take somebody, to do, say, 100 descriptions, we can now do probably 400 in the same amount of time. So, that website is going to rank better than the person's website that doesn't do that. That's a fact, and we've proven it. So I think you've got to make sure that there's that, you're not just putting a base prompt in, the copy and pasting, because you're just going to get, we'll say garbage out, but you could definitely work on it. You want to obviously be proud of the content that you're putting on your website. But you need to spend that time on the editing phase and on the prompt phase.
I've just realised I probably have to clarify as well, this is not dyed hair. This is natural born ginger hair. Do not listen to Mr. Hill. He's full of lies. So I'll just get that one out of the way. I just realised I zoned out there thinking about ChatGPT and like the possibilities of it, and just, I went, hang about, he's just said my hair's fake colour, so I'm not having that.
You spotted it.
It's definitely not just for men, so we'll leave that. I did quickly want to touch on as well, because I think one of the interesting points, it was actually at one of your events that I met a chap from Valley and Peak called Jim.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Obviously, he's like a long-standing client of yours, I believe, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it was interesting conversation because he mentioned that where he wanted to take the business and what you guys have been doing for him, and giving him that sort of level of kickstart. And he had, obviously, I think it was a Shopify store at the time. I believe it still is.
Yeah.
And he was looking to kick on and see what he could do. So where I'm going with this as well is, obviously, this is the Trends podcast. And one of the big things we'd noticed of the past sort of month transition. So just to give you a bit on this, Richard, outdoors as a whole, as a vertical, in terms of average order value and conversion rate, is up. So average order value and visitors is up roughly around about 7.5% from month on month, obviously getting towards summer season. Now, you mentioned there about customer like value optimization and the lifetime of that customer.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're getting to summer season. People want to go out hiking. They want to go out doing all the outdoorsy stuff that doesn't appeal to folks like me. But they want to go out and live their lives. What I'm looking for there is, how do you retain someone as well from that lifetime, from that season of just, I'm buying it for summer, I'm going to do a couple of walks, that'll be that. How then, in your opinion, do you create that value of a lifetime from somebody who's doing a summer season activity?
So Valiant Peak, I mean, they came to us probably close to 4 years ago now, I would say, and they were they were a new business. Now, normally we don't work with new businesses, if I'm completely brutally honest, which is like, that we have a sort of, ideal customer profile. But to be quite honest with you, our key metric is if they're nice people, we try and work with them. and Jim at Valiant Peak, it was like just the nicest chat when he phoned into the business. And I happened to take the call, actually. And we were recommended to him by a family member, I believe, that we'd done some business with, or we'd done some business with a friend of his many years ago. And going back to your question, it was like, okay, so you're selling these things, these very, very seasonal items. But the sort of side to that business is they are seasonal, but they're very sort of, how can I put it? So they're outdoor sleeping bags, tents, but they're for the real enthusiasts. They're not for maybe the guys that only go camping when it's sunny, which is maybe me and you, maybe, I'm not sure. They're the hardcore, they're the guys with the ice axe, the guys with it's minus 15, woohoo, they're those guys. So they're more of an enthusiast, customer. So that opens up more of a month-on-month opportunity, because they will, obviously they want to go out in different weathers. So they start with us right at the start point, which for us is, right, where are we going to get possibly the quickest win, for a business, where are we going to get a fairly quick return so that they can potentially reinvest, or, they can expand. So we start with them, or they start with us, on Google Shopping. Soon then move to Google search ads, and then fast forward, here we are sort of 4 years later, they take everything, I believe, with us. I know that we work on SEO, PR, email, search, shopping, but of course they've got this seasonal side, but that doesn't mean that they have a sort of an off season, which might be somebody that sells very, very, very Christmassy gifts, that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, they see a big uplift, when the season does kick in. But on there, if you like, downtime, but it isn't down, they're still doing pretty well. We are working on, areas where maybe there's certain brands. We do a lot of brand campaigns for them. So working on brands, which you can get a lot of traction on sort of very unique brands where there's maybe not as much competition as a lot of the bigger brands. When new products come out, there's a lot of things you can do around sort of being first to index, which is, if you've got a good understanding of the roadmap of products that are coming out from a manufacturer, you can create content around those products before anybody else, or really early in that sort of process. So Google sees your site as the authority because you're the only one that's, listing the 3-man triple insulated, whatever it is. I don't know the name of the products, but so, they're really good. It's a really good site. They've gone through a new site build with a partner of ours. We're not a development agency, but we work with various agencies that are. But a cracking business, but I think why they're successful will be the mindset of the owner. He's just so driven, so focused on sort of being just a brilliant business. Every single order that he sends out, he sends like a packet of Skittles with the order, and a little note with some orders as well.
Oh, so that's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was just say, you'd hardcore men who were sleeping in your triple insulated tent, tucking into a pack of Skittles or whatever, just at the side of a mountain. That'll work nicely. No, I think that's, as you say, it's fascinating as well, because it's always of interest to me when you understand the sort of drive of a business owner as well, and you understand that what they want to achieve. For example, there's been people in the past where they'll turn around and they'll say, oh, I don't necessarily want to be the best in terms of revenue or the best in terms of, like, I don't know, people coming to my website. I want to deliver the best possible, like after purchase experience with someone's aim.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I understand that, but first and foremost, you've got to get people to make the purchases to deliver the second part of that.
Yeah.
So again, just understanding a little bit of that retailer mindset, and not just wanting to be like, as I say, everybody else in the fold, or your next go outdoors or whatever, where everybody's just a number, like you've described there, sending out a pack of Skittles with every sort of order. It's cool, it's different, and it's what will bring people back. And again, factors into that lifetime value proposition as well. Just a very quick point. So I've got another couple of stats here. And again, just in your opinion, having worked in the digital marketing sector for 14, 15 years, this is something where I feel could be quite valuable. So we're looking at overall stats from specific sectors. So I'm looking in particular here at animals and pets. Now, do you guys work with any animals and pets retailers, Richard?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
This will do nicely then. It's almost like I've pre-selected this number. Yes. So over March to April of this year, we've actually noticed a 1.9% increase in revenue. Now, is there anything you've seen from your side to like corroborate this? I feel like I'm asking you like a question as a lawyer or something like that, but just to make sure that obviously we're on the right track.
I swear. So it is an industry it's an industry we've been in for a long while, actually. Probably since the start of the agency. We've got a client that has I don't know the exact number, but it's about 250 veterinary practices. When they started with us, they had about 10, and then they've acquired, been acquired, and so forth. So they've got about 250. I might be slightly off on that, but 250-ish. But March, April, you've got a big season around the flea season. It's one of the big sort of seasons around cat, dog, horse, where fleas, I'm not a flea expert. I should be by now, but I know I could put you onto one of my guys that has been writing content about fleas for the last 12 years. But that's a big, it's a very, very big industry, the flea industry. So there's different brands, but Frontline is quite a well-known one. They do TV advertising. I've been in the office of the owner of that business a few years ago now, where he ordered just shy of £1 million worth of Frontline while I was sat with him just on the phone for the various branches and committing to stock over the next few weeks and months for the website. So it's the time of year, definitely, and you see that in a lot of different industries, March, April. The sun's out, and because in theory it is, depending on where you live. So in terms of, cats, dogs, various animals, there's more activity outdoor wise. So and the flea side of things. So, I would definitely collaborate, agree with what you're saying. March, April, we see a big lift. I know the guys had, when I was in the office on last Thursday, I'm not going to say the amount, but, my head of PPC happened to say, right, we've just had a meeting with X, Y, and Z, and their turnover for the last 30 days on PPC is X. And I was like, flipping X, is that just PPC? You do see this big lift, it's quite common. And then we've got a lot of clients that sell various, that's the sort of, if you like, treatment side. But then we've got same client, again, actually sells a lot of prescription products. Again, you're going to get a lot more prescriptions this time of year potentially as well on certain animals and certain sort of conditions, depending on the time of year. Different conditions come through. So yeah, I would say that's a trend I would agree with. I think like most industries, there is that those peaks. We do a lot with barbecues and hot tubs and spas and outdoor garden sort of products. And then we do a lot with flowers and trees and things like that, which of course, that's, got these massive spikes that are just come, or come and gone, although they're still up. But there's been some huge, all these bank holidays. People want to be outside, don't they? So, well, in theory, so making sure you got your barbecue. That was, I think, the last thing I searched for yesterday was a Weber 310 barbecue, which is what I'm looking for at the moment. And it's that seasonal side of things. Every industry's got it.
I was going to say that literally you started describing like barbecues, hot tubs, jacuzzis and stuff like that. I was like, is this just your back garden you're walking through now? Is this, which is literally just going through going, got, done, sorted. So, as you say there, we talked about seasonality, and I feel like a lot of the stats that we have in here are covered by seasonality. You're looking at things like cycling saw a really big increase.
Yeah.
You're looking at things, again, like construction, which construction to us doesn't mean like building of skyscrapers and whatnot. It's more like buying timber and things like that, which does sort of cover that seasonality aspect.
Yeah, garden sheds.
I think the interesting point to make on this as well, so gardening as a sector by itself has seen from March to April an increase in 22.45%. However, year on year, it's down 5.36%. So last year, around about this time, I think maybe this was, I don't know, just on the back end of the C word again. And people had done all the gardening, they'd turned sheds into bars and all that sort of jazz, and there'd been all hell breaking loose. But there's been a massive increase month on month, but year on year, we're actually down.
Yeah. I think it's like you say, what you're alluding to there. I think a lot of the bigger jobs, have probably been done. The shed, the investment in the, in the raised bed, which was £800 worth of railway sleepers, that's done now. Or returfing the garden and buying 20 ton of topsoil. That was me. That job's done. Buying the hot tub. That's probably 2-3 years. The last 2-3 years, hot tub sales have been insane. Whereas now it's a lot bigger purchase. It's a lot bigger purchase than than some flowers and a few railway sleepers. Hot tubs, 5 to 50 grand. Depending on which end of the scale you are. So that's a big commitment. Commitments that were probably made, back, like say in the middle of the C word, etc. So that doesn't surprise me really. I think a lot of the big jobs probably been done. A lot more people focused, as they were last year, but even more so this year on going away, getting out, whether that's in the UK, abroad, etc.
I think that's been the big thing from a personal standpoint as well. Being like it's just been a sort of goal I've had this year is just to go travel, like go see different places instead of like, I'm not gonna lie, staycation life was not for me. Despite, as you alluded to earlier, Richard, being ginger, I do like the sun. It doesn't like me, but I like being out and about. So I think that shifting consumer mindset as well of transitioning budget that they would have spent on doing up the house or perhaps doing up their entire summer wardrobe or whatever has now transitioned into I'm going to go catch flights, not feelings. Thank you very much.
Love it.
And what we've been looking at as well is that travel on the whole saw an increase. It was minor month on month, but year on year was astronomical. And again, I think feeds into that overall that people's budgets, whilst things are getting tighter, are transitioning from this is my priority to I want to go to Spain for a week and just see what's going on or whatever it may be. And I think that's been the big part of it, to be fair.
Yeah, totally agree. I know, just, everyone I know, it seems to be about going places, doing things, experiences, trying to get out and about. I know holidays are absolutely my priority as an individual. That's I've just got back from Vietnam actually. A month ago I had 2 weeks in Vietnam. That was like absolute dream sort of couple of weeks out there. I went to an SEO conference that happened to be in Vietnam, but I tacked on an extra week. Various trips booked. But when I think about client wise, the sort of clients that sell things that are holiday related, whether that's luggage, specific clothing, that type of thing, they are up, but obviously they had an horrendous time, 3 years ago, so they deserve it.
Yeah, honestly, it's got to be one of them things where you get through that phase and I suppose, as I say, getting back to normal and like getting back out there, people are like, as you say, the people that struggle massively now are the ones that are being rewarded. And also, I do have to say as well, that is probably one of the most skillful blags I've ever heard in my life. A week in Vietnam for an SEO conference and then tag another week on the back of that.
Yeah, I was pleased with that. Yeah.
Right, I'll tell you what then, Richard. I think we've covered pretty much a fair whack of that, and I think we're up and running. But I would like to say, as I expected, this has been interesting, funny, and I've really enjoyed myself. So thank you very much for your time, fella. I do really appreciate it.
No problem, Tim. Thanks for having me.
No sweat at all, mate. Thank you very much.